disclaimer at the top of this video is that formatting does not make or break your story. But screenplays are designed and formatted in a specific way to be ideal for producing into a visual medium, so I would recommend learning to write by industry standards, especially if your primary interest is to sell your scripts. My name is Albert Ellison. I'm an award-winning independent screenwriter and filmmaker, creator of a film called The Profession, which will hopefully be released by the end of this year. Let's start talking about all of the elements of formatting a screenplay. Writing a screenplay is not the same as writing a book. While you're writing a complete story still, it's not meant to be all-inclusive. At the end of the day, it's still just a blueprint for a full, feature-complete film to be produced from. That being said, there are some directors who follow the formatting principles I lay out in this video to a T, but there can also be freedom found in breaking these guidelines for intended purposes. I'm going to restate throughout this video, I don't think you should necessarily be religious about following these principles, nor should you break the rules for the sake of being a rebel. You need to do what is best for your story, and above all else, think of this question. Am I making intentional decisions to help the crew producing this script deliver the story in the right way? With that in mind, let's dive into the different elements of a screenplay. First and foremost, we do not write in chapters, but we write in scenes. Each of our scenes need to have a scene heading, or a slugline. These are designed to inform the crew on the location and time of day of the scene so they may organize the principal photography correctly. This is the very first page from Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse, written by himself and his brother Max Eggers. This is the very first scene heading of the screenplay, reading Exterior, Atlantic Ocean, Day. As seen here, there are 3 parts to a scene heading, and they must all be capitalized. The first is the EXT. You always note the scene as either taking place in an exterior or interior location. If it's an interior location, it would be noted with an INT like this scene heading here. If your scene transitions from inside to outside or vice versa in the middle of it, then you may format it like this. The second element of the scene heading is the location. In this case, the Atlantic Ocean. If you have a large location like a house, or in this case, a big boat, you can first state the broad location and then be more specific following a period. Finally, you usually use the third section of the scene heading to notate the time of day the scene takes place in. Unless specifically vital to the story, I would always either put day or night. It's best to avoid more specific time zones like noon, dusk, dawn, sunset, because these are more specific and challenging timeframes to shoot within, and if it's not vital to the story, it's best to leave those decisions to the shooting coordinator. So next, let's look at action lines. Just like it sounds, this is used to express the action and descriptions of the story. These are written in traditional but unindented paragraphs and sentences. A good rule of thumb is to challenge yourself to holding your action paragraphs to 5 lines or less to help with readability and neat looking pages. The degree of detail and emotional description is really up to the writer. Tarantino is incredibly detailed, down to the choreography of every single fight in Kill Bill, whereas Paul Thomas Anderson really believes in leaving room for the actors to bring the material to life on the screen, and thus he's a lot more restrained in his writing. Neither of these approaches are wrong, and much of this is about defining your own strengths and honing in on your voice. But it's really important to understand, especially in Tarantino's case, that he's writing for himself to direct, and being that in the weeds may not be welcomed when trying to sell your screenplay to others. So just be aware of your intentions. If you're interested in seeing an unusual use of action in a screenplay that was actually commercially successful, check out this section from No One Will Save You. In all of this, remember, we're writing for the intended purpose of a visual medium. So in the action, keep your focus on whatever the audience will be seeing. What is the focus of this frame? We don't need to be writing the character's thoughts or visually unattainable ideas inside the action. This action must be able to translate directly to the screen. If you want your characters to be thinking, you may use voiceover through the dialogue, which is a really good segue. Let's talk about character and dialogue. Character names are always centered over their lines to make it abundantly clear who is talking and in what order for the crew. When introducing a character in your story, it's custom to usually introduce them in the action first. Here you should address them in their full, proper name in all caps, followed by a brief description. Following this, you can refer to them by their casual name if they have one. You may occasionally see parentheticals follow a character's name with either a VO or OS inside. This stands for voiceover or off-screen, to give instructions on how the information is meant to be presented inside the story. Charlie Kaufman's works often feature very self-reflective characters who think to themselves. Here in Eternal Sunshine, you can see VO being used to encapsulate Joel's thoughts. The third option that comes up in Final Draft is OC, which stands for off-camera, which is honestly just a far less common alternative to off-screen. I would just use OS if you have the use case for it. Parentheticals can be used within the dialogue itself, too. Here it can be used to express a specific action the character is taking during the dialogue, or be used to express a certain cadence or effort to their speaking. I would recommend never using these to inform how a line should be delivered. It's not really your job as the writer to direct the performance of the actors. Use your judgment and read many screenplays to feel the difference between that and bringing your characters an authentic presence off the page. Here's an example of what I mean. Let's say you're writing a conversation in a group setting and your speaking character needs to direct their line at one specific person. This exact scenario takes place in another one of Kaufman's works, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Or here in La La Land, you can see how they inform the action during line delivery. It's a more fluid approach and more emotionally immersive than breaking the dialogue into full action blocks just for that one nuance. In a nutshell, these can be helpful to express specific actions that would otherwise be counterintuitive for the reader to assess from the line itself. The last elements I want to talk about are transitions and camera directions. These elements can be easily abused if you're not writing for yourself to direct, but sometimes indicating a specific cut to a scene can be essential to finishing a point or landing an emotional beat. Transitions are used for editing cues. They are anchored to the right-hand side of the script and they're in all caps. Some common examples are cut to, dissolve to/from, fade in or out, jump cut to, smash to, etc. Unless dramatic pronunciation is needed for the transition from one scene to another, simply stack your scenes like this and it'll flow well. Camera directions should always be built into the left side of the action, but always capitalized as well. In Final Draft, when pulling up the list of options, you can hotkey H to type in a shot and it will automatically capitalize it for you. The last thing I want you to understand is why all screenplays use the same font, which is a variation of Courier. This font is used because it's a fixed pitch font, meaning the diameter of each character and the spaces between them all are identical so that the pages have a standard length and meatiness to them. This helps us get closer to that 1 minute of runtime per page average, even though there are obvious exceptions to this, and that mostly depends on the pacing that is brought to your film by the respective director. To wrap this video up, let's bring it back to the question of intentionality. In everything, question whether your decisions are going to help the crew producing this script deliver the story in the right way. Don't be an annoying purist, but also don't break the rules just for the sake of. And if you're going to break the rules, you first have to know the rules, so make sure you have all of this down. Read lots of screenplays, the good ones and the bad ones. It'll help you develop your voice as a screenwriter and it'll help you just learn the format. You'll start learning how much description you like, how you like the characters to speak, and all those things. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. If you enjoyed it or found it informative, please consider leaving it a like and subscribing. I mean, it would help me out a lot, but also, if you thought the video could have been better, leave me some constructive criticisms in the comments below and leave it a thumbs down as well. And thanks, guys. I'll see you later.